What's happening, guys? Well, the teaser video for the Yamaha R9 was just released. And are you as excited for this bike as I am? I tell you what, for those of us that have been chasing the news for the R9, well, many of us already have a pretty solid idea for what type of motorcycle this is going to be. It's a fully faired 900cc triple. It's the CP3 engine that you would find in the MT09 or the XSR 900. Basically rocking the same platform as those bikes with a full fairing. But we're not exactly sure what changes have been made. And with another video to come in just a few days, this first teaser video has got a lot of folks talking. But I gotta tell you guys, I'm not so sure that I am just yet frothing at the mouth for this motorcycle. See, here's the thing. The R9 is supposed to take the place of the R6, which is to say that it falls in between the R7 and the R1, that apex predator that it is in Yamaha's lineup. But the R6 was the apex predator in its own right. In the 600cc class, I don't know of a better bike than that R6, and unfortunately it's not available for street use anymore. But enter the R9 to take its place. The walking idea is that, well, that engine, as seen in the MT09, falls at the flywheel somewhere between 115 and 120 horsepower, which is about the same as the R6. Okay, maybe already off to a good start, but those also would say that, well, it's a 900cc engine. It's going to make more torque everywhere, and it's going to do it at a much lower RPM. Yeah, you're right about that too. But here's the problem, and it's a pretty significant problem. For a lot of folks that are looking at the R9, there's a hope. There's fingers crossed that that motorcycle will be able to not only in terms of performance keep pace with an R6, but more importantly, that it will give the GSXR 750 a proper run for its money. See, look, 115 or 120 horsepower is nice if you're a 600, but this is a 900cc motorcycle, and so far, well, the 900cc class hasn't really been known to be a performance class. I mean, most of them at best are somewhere in that 120-ish horsepower range. Not talking about the 955 Panigale, I'm just talking about the stuff coming out of Japan. As far as hyper sports bikes go, well, that 900cc class is really not there. So what a lot of people, again, would hope is that this bike could give that 140, 135, maybe 145 horsepower number. Maybe it's going to flirt with that, and maybe, hopefully, it can run with that GSXR 750 to where you have a solid, strong, large middleweight competitor to go up against the rest of the field. Because at 120 horsepower, although you might say, well, that's plenty for the street, well, in some cases, yeah, I can see that, and the torque will definitely drive that bike around. The weight's going to be light, and that CP3 is lively. We did, by the way, see in that video, if you notice, the swing arm, when the bike's doing that sweet smoky burnout, it's the same as the MT09, but is that rear sprocket a little bit smaller? I'm hoping that it is, to give that bike a little bit longer legs. An engine that is that torque rich, you'd like to be able to really lean on that big push of torque to get you moving, and to be able to give that bike the long legs that it needs to be able to go up against the other hyper sports in its class. Tall gearing is nice if you want to do hooligan stuff, but when it comes down to business, you got to be able to run with the big boys. Again, the big boys are any of the hyper sports class bikes, including that GSXR 750. Time will tell. The date's coming soon. We're going to get more info on this bike, of course, soon enough. But it's fun to think about, and it's fun to talk about in the respect of what this bike could be, especially to one group of buyers. See, here's the thing. It's a triple, it's got a full fairing, and it looks good too by the teaser videos. I get that it's blurry, but it's very R6 and R1 reminiscent. But I think there's a core group of guys that are just absolutely salivating for this bike to come out, and that is Triumph fans. Now, I know we're talking about a different brand now, but look, Triumph, never released a fully fared version of the latest iteration of the 765, the R, the RS, and the Moto 2, which is weird because they are the sole engine provider for Moto 2. You'd think that those would have gone. Anyway, the Daytona that they released is basically a warmed over Trident. It's a 660cc bike, and although it looks great, fully fared, the reality is that it's 100 horsepower, and it really wasn't the Daytona folks were out there waiting for. And especially old school Daytona guys. I'm not talking about the 765 and the 675 guys. I'm talking about gentlemen of a certain age that remember the 955 variants, the T595 chassis that were out there that were such darlings when they were released basically about 25 or so years ago. That Daytona nameplate, it's got a lot to live up to, and there's some folks that didn't think that that 660 did quite the job. But could you imagine what a Daytona Ista, if you will, would think of a triple 900-ish cc bike making that 135, 145 horsepower if it only does? Well, we can keep our fingers crossed. We can keep our hopes up. We'll get all of our information soon enough. But in the meantime, post up your comments. Let me know what your thoughts are on that bike. What are you hoping that it's going to be? And we'll catch you on the next one. That's a wrap.